How's it going, Blazers? We're going to build that community to allow for discussion of providing specifications you can relate to, so you can have an educated decision on your purchases. This is going to be a little bit different because there's going to be the death of all things scales. So these are the ones that came in. So now, this one had a little bit of issue with the post office where they got it in, then said that I moved and didn't have any forwarding address, so they sent it back to him, and then he sent it back to me. So that's kind of what happened with that. But we got these. These are silver Twill. I really fell in love with this design for one of the gold class 940s. When I went actually to Benchmade, they had it sitting on a shelf, and then I was like, wow, what is that? And then just learned about it that way, and then figured out how much that actually cost. And I was like, I'm not going to buy that. So when I was seeing this opportunity for these, I really liked it. I really actually liked also the Griptilian. So I'm going to be taking that 940 design and idea, put it into the Griptilian with the help of him as well as Steve Kluver. So in the previous video, I had a little bit of a lapse of memory. I forgot his name. But Steve, very much thank you very much for offering to pay for half of the scale cost to kind of push me to get into these scales and to put it onto this knife. So I already took off the pocket clip for it. So we're going to go through. He does give you an instruction manual for it, so you can actually walk through as far as what to do with that. The major thing on that is the right side scale is one that is a little bit deeper countersunk, so you're going to want to do that. We also are working with the new Boya mic, so let me know, I guess, if you notice a difference between the previous video and this video, if there's any difference between that, because it is a directional mic. And right now that mic is facing down. So during Blade Show, that should help out because I'm going to be picking up on what the person's saying in front of me. But right now, I'm kind of talking at the back of the microphone instead of the front of the microphone, which is probably not the best thing to do. I should probably turn it around. So now I actually turn the microphone around so it's actually facing up towards me, which I'm speaking to you through the microphone, so that makes more sense. So we're going to do this one. So I already took off the pocket clip, so there's the one that came with the knife originally here. And then I did order in the one from Benchmade, and Benchmade's great because you can actually get these for no cost. So there's going to be a new pocket clip with those scales. And then also I did notice the screws for the pocket clip are a little bit longer as far as what he supplies. So those are going to be the ones that I'll be using as well, even though they are black instead of the satin. So probably a little bit difference in the thickness of the scale, and that's probably the reason for that. And so we have the T6 and the T10 is what we have for this to be able to do disassembly on it. So I'm going to take out all the screws for this, and then we're going to kind of go from there. So this is kind of, I was expecting a lot more kind of a backlash when I actually was talking about the Griptilian versus 940. Because really, that was one thing that was at least surprising to me when I was actually had the 940 in hand and also the Griptilian. I was like, I actually really preferred the Griptilian line versus the 940. 940 is still a great knife, don't get me wrong, but for me, I thought that as far as even how they operated, it was a little bit different between the 940 and the Griptilian. So for me, I really liked this style. So I do appreciate Mr. Blauer, one, for actually being able to allow me to experience both at the same time. And then this is actually one that I traded with him for. So I actually got the mini Griptilian from Mr. Blauer beforehand as well. So I did send this also in for the Life Sharp warranty process. And so far, that's actually been a very nice process because they actually do stick to that 2-week turnaround. Currently, I have some knives out with Kershaw and with Buck, and then I sent it in priority so they can have it in their shop as quick as possible. And then what I found after about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I gave him a call and said, hey, just checking on the status on it. I didn't get any emails back from you guys as far as if you received it or not. And then I was informed by both of them that they're probably about a month out. So I could have probably shipped it as slow as possible, and then they still wouldn't have processed it. So my box is basically sitting somewhere waiting to be opened and then waiting to be entered as far as what is wrong with it. So that's kind of an interesting thing for that as far as being, I mean, it's a very large companies, so I can understand why they just get probably flooded with a return and warranty process. But it was just really quite a bit longer than I was expecting for those. Taking that. Some of those aren't coming out very well, but those are the ones for the scale. I'll take that off when I get there. Switch over to the T10, take out the pivot. So my dog is kind of going nuts a little bit over there. Every now and then, our newer dog, and we have a Scottish Terrier, comes downstairs while I'm recording videos just to see what I'm doing. And sometimes, before I would stop and I was trying to kind of redo things a little bit, but yeah, it's going to happen. So if you have any noises in the background from a dog, little clicks of toenails on the floor, that is just my dog. Take off that one. I'm going to reuse that. I'm not going to reuse that. They're stuck there. So these are D-shaped pivots, so it actually only can go in one way. So to get that out of there. So you cannot put that in incorrectly. Get my washer. So these were factory service, so I'm not going to be doing cleaning on them before putting them back in. But we'll just take off the last of the scale so I can put the new ones on. Both those are off. So that's all the pieces there. Get this little washer out of here. So that's going to be all the pieces. You got the phosphorus bronze washers in there, which work out pretty well. Make sure we get all these screws out. Because you do have to reuse the liner screws. So that's one thing in the instructions. It does say to reuse those. Popping those out. So, old scales. So done with those. We got all the liner scale screws there. Move that out of the way. So the right side is the one that is stating that has a little bit deeper. So there's going to be the one I'm going to be doing from the back side and actually putting this through. So there's going to be where that's going to sit flush. And then to put the blade I think this one. I don't disassemble these very often. So apologize, because then there's going to be a lot of little breaks in there, because some people kind of can probably do this in their sleep, but I do not. So gotta get that blade in there. Trying to line up those washers. The spring actually popped out a little bit there. So I guess that's one of the reasons why those channels are available, so it actually keeps that in place. I'm going to pause and read a little bit. So it seems like you'd assemble the whole thing first and then install the blade afterwards, is from what I'm seeing. So we'll see how that works. And it says do not tighten yet. So you can fit it on and then put the screws in, but don't tighten them. So these are ones that you're reusing as far as the scale screws. So you got 4 little itty bitty screws. If anybody knows as far as where you can get I guess, more of the these screws in different colors, I kind of would want to get the satin ones. Otherwise, I can go and take the black finish off. But it'd just be nice to just have pre-polished screws or something like that. Get the barrel spacer. So this one also does have 2 barrel spacers. If you want to have 3 barrel spacers, because the original one has 3 screws that kind of go across the side, you can request that, but otherwise he does not provide it with the 2. So this one that is a new process, because the other kind of Benchmade style one that I worked on before was one of the Firebird knives. That's the one that actually disassembled. Did that live too. I think it was over half an hour. Right now we're at 12 minutes, so it's a little bit long too for this, but if you're sticking with me on this, so I appreciate that if anybody's still around. But that's kind of how that's going to look right there. And the arc lock was tied up a little bit on that scale, so when I moved it back, it dropped down. So with that, the right side is where that pivot's going to go. Go through this side. Where's that D shape? So D is on the bottom. There we go. So it's in there a little bit. Get to line this up properly. And sometimes I used a toothpick before to try and line up the screws for the washers. Uh-oh. And I dropped it. So, I'll try that a little bit more. So there's probably a lot better ways to do this, which if anyone wants to comment as far as the best way to get this assembled, I am into suggestions. Right now, just trying to get that lined up so I could get the pivot screw back through. So this seems like it's probably the most tedious part of the process, is starting to get everything lined up for that pivot screw, because all the body screws and everything else are really straightforward as far as how those go back together. But this part, as far as the pivot, is the one that you have to line up those screws, the washers, in order to actually make that work properly. That still's a little off-centered. So that goes down. So we got it in initially. I just got to get those washers lined. So this I had to pull back a little bit on the axis to be able to get that to line up properly. So I made it past the first washer. And past the second washer. Okay, and I'm going to go back and do this to the Loctite on it. Just right now, I'm just going to get it assembled because I'm still trying to consider whether I'm going to go and take this black coating off of this hardware. So that is that, and we'll tighten down all the screws, make sure that it's lined up, and then so once you do that, then you would close it down, make sure that the blade is lined up. If not, then you're going to go and loosen it back up, and then kind of do that final adjustment for those pieces. So initial impression on these scales, I mean, they're extremely well done. I mean, he used to do the actual by hand as far as the shaping and everything else. Currently, he's doing a CNC, so he is programming all this stuff into the machine and actually doing those machine cuts. That doesn't take away anything from the artistry of it, but that is just where it goes for production. He is also full-time, so do help support him if you do like these scales, because it's great to get that type of expertise within the community, and also to just really help him out to be able to show off some of his work, because this stuff is very amazing as far as some of the quality and some of the build of it. That's lined up properly. It's a little too tight. So that's that one, and then we'll put this on. So this one I did order now with just the single direction, because I'm not going to do it the other way for a left-hand carry. So for that show side, I didn't need that universal type of mounting for it. And so like kind of the original one. So since it's mass marketed, you're going to have a right or left-hand carry. I don't need that on this one, so that's why when I ordered the custom scale, I ordered it without that on that side. Then we'll get the deep carry pocket clip, kind of. And I did also, as I said, to use the screws that were provided instead of the ones that came with the clip. So I'm assuming that's because there's some depth difference with the scale. So one. And almost there. 20 minutes. If anybody's still here, do appreciate that. Leave a comment down below. Let's go with dirigible. I believe that's the right word for a blimp. So if you put that in the comments, I know that you made it this far. Otherwise, a lot of people have already timed out or went fast forwarded to the end to actually see the final result. Again, I'm going to put Loctite on that later, but not at this moment. So that is the 940, no, not 940, was inspired by the 940, but that's the Griptilian with the Death of All Things scale. So far, I mean, I'm impressed by it. I mean, I don't know what you guys think for how it looks, but to go from this to that, let me know in the description down below as far as what you think as far as this type of modification. Because really, the scale goes for, in this format, is about $120. So you're going to be spending at or above the value of the actual knife, which is somewhat you're going to think is kind of crazy or for some folks. But if you're going to keep it and you love the style and everything else, this really makes it your own. So it has the back spacer instead of that full part. And you can actually do an insert too. So if I wanted to later on, I might even order like a wood one in here just to kind of contrast it out, because I do like wood on knives. But that's something that's available because everything's CNC'd, so the tolerances on there should be spot on as well. But that is that. So I do appreciate it for anybody that's watching all the way through. Sorry for the little hiccups in the middle where I had to go back to the instructions, but that's that. That's the knife, and appreciate it. Thanks for your time.